And that was filmed using this, the SANDMARC Probe Lens for iPhone. And we have to admit at the very beginning of this video that this lens here is an absolute whopper sticking off the end of an iPhone. And it's not really going to be a lens we're going to be easily popping in our pocket and using every single day. But being able to get a camera lens into really narrow and awkward positions means that we can get these super unique shots. Whether that's filming through Lego, maybe across the text of a book, or even up and close to things that you don't usually get up and close to. Using a probe lens allows us to be super creative and unlocks a whole new world of filming that any other lens is just not capable of doing. And that all comes down to the design characteristics of this lens. It's very long and it's very thin. And depending on where your mind is, that's not always a bad thing, as this long, slender design means the viewing angle is nice and wide. It also has a large depth of field, and it can have things super close to the end of the lens, with a minimum focus distance of just 16mm. And like I said at the very beginning of this video, a lens like this, with its characteristics and its long, slender design, is not going to be used for everyday use. I mean, look at it, we're not just going to be putting this in our pockets. This lens is solely going to be used for those unique and creative shots that we want to create and no other lens can replicate. So I suppose we should answer the question, is it actually any good? And for the price of over £300 or over $300, this lens is definitely not a cheap one. But once we receive it and get hands on with it, we can really start to see that the build quality is super high, as the lens is fully made from aluminium and it feels really premium and solid in our hands. It's about 35cm long and it weighs 258 grams. Once we remove the branded plastic lens cap on the front, we start to see the multi-element glass inside. And also on the front in the lens, we can also see that it has some built-in LEDs, which we'll talk more about in a second. On the thicker rear part of the lens, we can see that there is a USB-C port, and this is where we charge the internal battery for those LEDs on the front with the included cable. Next to that is a button, and if we press it, it will turn the LEDs on. And if we press it again, it will dim the brightness, and once more it will turn them off. You'll also see next to that there is a tiny LED indicator telling us if those LEDs are on or not. And this LED indicator is actually really useful because if the lens is in an awkward position, we can't actually see the front of the lens, this indicator will allow us to see if those LEDs are on or not. And then right next to that we have a large manual focus wheel, which is also metal and is ridged for a nice bit of grip. The focus wheel feels nice and firm when spinning, and it has hard stops on each side. Then on the rear of the lens, under another plastic cover, we have a 17mm thread, and this is how we attach it to our iPhone. Because when we go onto the website to buy it, we actually select the iPhone we're going to be using it with, and they will send the probe lens and the desired iPhone case together. And I have the iPhone 15 Pro Max, so all I have to do is screw the 17mm thread of the probe lens directly onto the main lens camera of the iPhone's case. And it is great to see that both the threads on the rear of the lens and the iPhone case are metal, which should in theory help with the durability, as we're going to be constantly taking this lens on and off. So this section here is taking a lot of wear and tear, and all the weight of that long lens is going to be really stressing this joint a lot. And I have to admit that when it is attached to the phone case, it does feel nice and secure and solid, but I still don't really want it just kind of flopping around in the wind. I would definitely recommend giving it a little bit of support as well. And I'm assuming that when we want to upgrade our phones in the future, all we should have to do is change the phone case, as this lens, in theory, should work with newer phones, as long as they keep that 17mm camera thread on the phone case. Okay, so when we're not going to be using this lens, we can then pop those lens caps back on to keep some dirt and dust out of it, and then we can store it in the supplied soft carry bag. And then they also supply a soft zipped case as well. This also has a microfiber cloth inside and also a little clip, and then we can attach this to the bag, and then we can maybe attach this to our belts or into or onto our camera bags as well. But we don't want to put it away quite yet. Let's screw it back onto the phone case and now let's take it for a proper test drive. And if we open up the camera app, sometimes it might look a bit weird like this. And that's because your phone is trying to use the macro lens, which we don't want. So all we have to do is make sure that we disable the macro setting by clicking here. And now we can just use the phone and lens like we normally would. And we can start to see those kind of characteristics come out because of the narrow lens. It actually has a really wide depth of field of 106 degrees. And with that minimum focus distance of only 16mm, we can get things super close to the end of the lens, but we're also getting a lot of the surroundings in too. Now I would say to get the best results, we're going to want to hold the screen to lock our exposure and focus. Now we can use that focus wheel on the lens, which gives us far more control and allows us to easily get our custom focus point. And this is probably super obvious, but I'm going to say it anyway. Yes, you can use this lens in any orientation, whether you want to shoot it in portrait or landscape, or in any camera app like the built-in camera app, the Blackmagic camera app, through Instagram or something. In theory, you can use it how you want in any camera app, and in theory, you should get some pretty cool looking shots. But to get the best looking shots, I feel like there are a few more steps you need to take than just pointing and shooting and clicking record. One of them is light. This lens needs a lot of it. If we don't add light, then our phone is going to try to work hard to boost the exposure digitally, which is going to start to bring noise into the image. So adding our own light will help to alleviate some of that, and it means the final image will be less noisy. Now, like I said just now, the lens does have those built-in LEDs on the front, which we can turn on, and it has 2 brightnesses. And using these LEDs might help you out in some situations, and I think it's really good that they've added them onto the lens, but they're only set to one single color temperature. So depending on our scene and what we're shooting, it might look a bit weird and washed out, and sometimes it seems to flatten out our compositions. Also, having the LEDs on the front of the lens means that if there is anything reflective, then you'll probably see them reflected back into our final shot. So I'd recommend adding our own lights to create our nice compositions with some nice depth and texture. And next up, I think we should talk about the choreographed movement of a probe lens. For me personally, I feel the magic really happens when this lens is slowly panning past or through these unique worlds, giving the viewer a cool and moving perspective. Take this side by side here for instance. The static shot just seems boring and the moving shot feels far more dynamic and immersive. And this is where I feel like we hit another slight hurdle. To get those nice and smooth and dynamic moving shots, I feel like we need to introduce another bit of equipment, a slider, as going handheld with a probe lens really exaggerates any form of handheld wobble. Even if you're trying to be super steady and the phone is also trying to stabilize the footage, the final shot just isn't as nice as a steady slider shot. Again, seeing a side-by-side clearly shows the difference between going handheld and using a slider. So you can pick up some nice little sliders like this one, which is the actual SANDMARC iPhone slider, which is a manual one, meaning that we're actually physically moving the slider section up and down on the actual rails. So this will help to alleviate most of those handheld wobbles, but because we're doing it manually, still might mean that we get some jolty footage. Or we could use one of these, a motorized slider, and for me personally, I feel like this is going to give us the best looking shots, as the motors are doing the movement, meaning that it's going to be far smoother than our silly little wobbly human hands. So I would definitely say that using a lens like this isn't really for your average hobbyist. It's for those people who really want to start to up their iPhone filmmaking, and it does kind of need those extra few steps, like I said, like adding some extra lighting to make the compositions look a little bit better, have a little bit more depth in them. And also having something like a slider really helps to elevate it, because static shots really aren't that fun, exciting or dynamic, and those moving shots on a slider are far better than any form of handheld wobbly shots. And to take this lens even further, I would also recommend using an app like the Blackmagic camera app, so we can take back control and use all of the manual settings to get the exact image we want. But once we put all of that together and add some nice lighting, use a slider and choreograph our movements, we get some amazing looking footage with our iPhones. So I suppose my conclusion is this. if you really want to up your filmmaking on your iPhone and you want to start to get those kind of cool and creative and unique camera angles and shots that no other lens can replicate because of that uniqueness of the probe lens, you've already got some lighting and maybe a slider hanging around, then getting a lens like this will really unlock a different part of your brain and make you think differently of how to capture shots that you might not have thought that you could get before because no other lens can do it apart from a probe lens. Like for me, it's really brought back the fun in filming, the creative freedom to think outside of the norm and allow me to get shots I've never been able to capture before. Yes, this isn't a lens I'll be taking with me everywhere I go or even use on a regular basis. A probe lens like this is for those unique and creative ideas that are very few and far between but no other lens can replicate. But that's what I think, and now I would love to know, what do you think of the probe lens? Are you interested in picking one of these things up? If so, let me know what is the very first thing that you want to film with this. And I have to say that this is not the first probe lens I've reviewed. I've also looked at the newer probe lens, so also let me know in the comment section down below, do you want me to make a comparison of both of these so we can see which one is best? If so, let me know in the comment section down below. If you found this video interesting and informative, a like and subscribe would be really appreciated, and I hope to see you here again soon. Thanks for watching.